Hey everybody, today is April 24th, 2025. This is a midday lunch break across the pitch episode right after Bradley Carnell's post-game or not pre-game press conference, I should say. I'm so used to saying after the fact. We're going to do a preview episode today. But I am Mike Barrera. I'm joined by Jose Nunez, and we are just very excited to have you guys in a little matinee across the pitch. So Jose, how you doing this afternoon?
I'm doing well. Dog is groomed. I sat through that press conference. That was a nothing burger, but that's okay. It's sometimes better to have nothing to really report than to have bulletin board material and all the nonsense. I'm intrigued to see or hear, I should say, what Troy Lesane has to say, because obviously we know that he and Jim used to be pretty close, pretty friendly in a way. Not best friends like Pat Noonan, but ultimately, man, this is a game, and I know we're gonna preview the game, but this is one of those games where the Union are going into a very tough, busy May schedule, and
Mm-hmm.
this is one of those games that they just need to check the boxes and get 3 points before it really comes down fast. So I don't know where you want to go from here. I'm guessing you want to talk about Carnell's press conference.
Yes, I mean, I think I agree with you 100%. It wasn't really much of anything. One of the reporters had asked him about, well, who's going to be the penalty kick taker now that Daniel Gazdag is no longer here. He kind of said, well, well, first we got to go get the penalty. Mark, thanks for joining us here tonight. Today, I'm so used to saying tonight. Today.
Yeah,
So mean, we know that Quinn Sullivan has taken a PK recently. It did not go as we all would have hoped.
that was
So it's
Nashville, right?
I want to say yes, it was against Nashville.
Yeah.
So he's basically saying, like, let's get the PK first, and then we'll figure it out when the time comes. So I don't know, Jose. Let's maybe do a quick little chat here now that Daniel Gazdag is officially gone. Who would be your penalty kick taker out of this current roster?
Honestly, I think I would say Kai. The
Really?
guy's
Okay.
yeah, the guy's got a left foot. He's got a strong left foot. He's got one to boot. So I don't see why not. Especially the guy who, when you really think about it, if you took Gastag out of the equation for the past 3-4 years, Julian Carranza would be the record holder by leaps and bounds when it comes to goals scored. That's neither here and there. All that to illustrate that I wonder how much what the interest is of someone like Kai, who has been sort of a leader behind the scenes. Obviously, runs a little hot than
Mhm.
most on that team, but I feel like someone that wants to be that leader would probably step up and want to do it. I also wouldn't shy away from someone like, especially after watching games where he has scored, and in terms of the match when he went to Azerbaijan for Haiti. Like, I wonder what a Danley Jean Jacques does from the penalty spot. He seems to be pretty clinical when it comes to slotting them in from not too far away and tucking them away. So I honestly, it's I'm giving you a non-answer by saying some, but also like everybody, like, give everybody a chance and figure it out. But Danley would be one of my picks too. But Kai comes to mind as like a leader who would probably step in and sort of, like show by doing.
Yeah, Steve joins us here. Let Danley take the PK, so he's in agreement with you there. I think one of the biggest surprises, which kind of developed over a couple of years, was seeing how Jack Elliott was really comfortable at taking PKs and actually pretty good at it. I mean, I can't remember him ever missing a PK, to be perfectly honest with you. So sometimes you do have those unsung heroes that you wouldn't expect to be really good at it, and they come up and take it. I would like to see someone like Damiani step up and take it. I would like to see even Vasilev
Yeah.
try to take a crack at it. At this point, it's hard to judge that anyone will be poor at it or really strong at it. I mean, it definitely takes a mentality, a strong mentality. You have to have a confidence, and you have to have a game plan entering it.
Yeah.
So it's. I'm very curious. I think Kai Wagner is a great choice in terms of the leadership of the club. I mean, he's obviously someone who's been around for a while. We like to see one of our long-standing players come up and take it and kind of show that leadership and show that aggression and confidence. So I'm agree with you with Kai. Um, Maybe Ua too. I would like to see Ua take a crack at it, but
And that's just it,
we'll
right?
figure
Like,
it out.
there are so many faces and names that I think could do it and would probably be good. Not to harp on Quinn, especially after winning a Goal of the Week award and earning himself his U22 contract in the off season, etc. But that Nashville penalty left a lot to be desired. If I was at the airport, if I recall, going on my way to Seattle, and I remember watching it since my flight was delayed. I was like, oh my goodness,
It
this
was
is
not good.
it's not good. Just pick a corner, brother, whether high or low. Just pick a side and go for it. It was like, I think It was like middle. It was on the ground ish, but like I think going to Quinn's right
Yeah,
keeper.
it wasn't far off from the keeper at the
Yeah,
center. Yeah.
it was one of those that he was banking on the goalkeeper making the move instead of Quinn going in and making the move for the goalkeeper. I don't know. It's interesting. I never I never wanted to be the one to take the penalty kicks at in my playing career. And granted, my playing career is not very great or very long, but nonetheless, like I just never had it in me. I always felt like I would melt under the pressure. But kudos to whoever steps up or whoever Bradley and Mitch decide are going to be the ones to step up.
T-Mac joins us today. Pretty sure Ali said a few years back that he hates taking penalties and will never volunteer himself. Not that he's in the mix for it now, but funny self-awareness. I mean, listen, maybe you'll get someone like Frankie Westfield. He's got the confidence, like the little Philly
Yeah.
swagger. I could see Westfield coming up and trying to take a couple. But enough with PKs. We can go on and on about this. We did
Yes.
have the press conference. The one thing that I guess is noteworthy is that he did mention Glavinovic is slowly coming around, so that's a positive. This roster, for the most part, is healthy. Seems to be there's not really any serious knocks. Of course, I'd say probably the most important one is Andre Blake. Again, not on the injury list. Seems like he should be good to go for DC United. Now, I know you and Todd spoke on the Free Kick Pod recently about the Atlanta match. I don't know if you want to share a couple minutes now on your thoughts on this, since we haven't talked about on our show yet. I mean, it was a pretty convincing win overall.
Yeah.
And I would say arguably the strongest they've looked so far this season, maybe outside of the first match against Orlando, maybe. It's been a couple days now. What are your thoughts on the victory against Atlanta?
That's a good question, Mike, in terms of sort of where that victory stacks up against the rest. And I think that this one's up there. And I think everybody or anybody will put the asterisk per se on the Cincinnati victory because they were just it was that game in between CONCACAF Champions Cup matches for Cincinnati, and everybody will put the asterisk. But like, what can the Union do about that, right? They got to play who's in front of them. They can't, come in and be like, oh, we should probably take it easy because they have a game in a few days, and they played a few days earlier. So like that game was pretty convincing too. So that's a yeah, I would say maybe Cincinnati, though the Atlanta red card made it. But all in all, I think the Atlanta victory was pretty telling of what this system can do, and ultimately the ultimate. And sure, Atlanta's a team in disarray right now, right? With
Mhm.
what's going on or what's not going on, and not going in to the back of the net for them. But it certainly is a vote of confidence for the work that people are
Well,
gonna kill me. The work that Ernst Tanner and his scouting department, through the Chris Zitterbarts of the world, through I'm sure maybe John Shear's involved in some way, shape, or form, et cetera, and finding these players and finding
right.
these gems. And only had they also walked away with at least 1 point against New York City, no one would be talking about Daniel Gazdag. And I'm fully aware that the Gazdag move happened after, actually, no, was it right before New York City? It was right before New
I
York City,
believe
wasn't
I want to say yes, it was. Yeah,
it? Okay.
the weeks are kind of blending in on me, but I think
Okay.
so.
So if they draw or win at New York City at City Field, awful field, by the way, being there in person, and they defeat Atlanta the way they did, no questions asked, just how everybody has forgotten about the McGlynn deal
Yeah.
after a nice stretch.
And that's the thing. I mean, like, listen, today, let's say today is a big day for Philadelphia. It's Eagles draft day, as you guys can see. I'm wearing my Howie Roseman, bleed for the city shirt. So our minds are a little bit elsewhere today. But the reason why I mentioned our beloved Eagles is that you saw the transition from Jason Kelsey to Cam Jurgens. And you thought, oh my God, how could we possibly go from one Hall of Fame Pro Bowler and then trust his next guy? And sure enough, he comes in. You kind of almost forget that Jason Kelsey was absent. That's kind of the feeling I get with McGlynn and maybe Daniel Goslock right now. Are their absences noticeable and visible? I think we can both agree that Kai Wagner's absence was visible this season. I think Andre Blake's absence was exceptionally visible against NYCFC when Andrew Rick goes out there and kind of makes that mistake. So I think that it's still too early to tell on the Daniel Goslock move, of course, right? It's only
Yeah.
been a couple games, but I think you have a valid point. It doesn't feel like it's hurt the team significantly in terms of how. I mean, obviously, they just won 3-0. How can you say that they've declined? And they were a one Andrew Rick mistake away from pulling a draw at Citi
Yeah.
Field. So far so good on that front. in terms of the win, I think Dave and I on our previous show had talked about this current homestand, DC United and Atlanta United. They felt like must wins to get the season back on track. But considering the stretch of games in May that you really need to build up as many points as you possibly can against those opponents that you should be winning, especially at home. And I know we talked about Bradley Carnell's press conference being kind of a nothing burger. The one thing he does highlight is, listen, Atlanta has the talent. They are going to win games. They are going to get better. This is a very long season. I know we're only 25% of the way in, so there's still a lot more to go. But get them while they're down. Get those wins while they're not performing at their best, because that's when you can do it, and it might make a difference come September, October. So overall, I'm very pleased with that, and I think. Do I think we're a better squad than DC United right now? Probably. Am I still concerned about them considering our history with them? Absolutely. So let's kind of segue into this next match coming up against DC United. What are your thoughts so far with DC? I don't know if you've seen them play yet this season.
I've watched bits and pieces, and that's mainly because MLS, and it was mostly this past weekend where I think a lot of people were in and out, busy. So the editorial staff had me watch or try to pay attention to 6 different matches with the potential of writing about 1 or 2 of them. I ended up having to help out with the Javier Mascherano press conference after Miami won against Columbus. And then I ended up writing with the Union. But I kept an eye on DC United, obviously selfishly knowing that, like, okay, after this, the Union go on to play DC. And I watched that monster of a goal by, I believe his name is Peglo. If I got this guy correctly, he was actually one of the goals that was up for goal of the week against Quinn Sullivan. Which, congratulations, Quinn, for winning. Sure, you're watching.
Of course.
It was that like bicycle kick
After we
right to left.
After we trashed Quinn's PK, I'm sure he's watching. So how you doing?
I'm sure if he is watching, he's got a hell of a lot thicker skin than to hear from two schmoes talking about penalty kicks when we would just flub them into the river. But no, DC United's one of those teams that's interesting. On paper, they have a lot of really good talent. I mean,
yeah.
You have Christian Benteke, who's no slouch, and then you also have some talent with Peglo and Kijima, and they tried to improve. I like to think. I think he joined this year, or was it last year? I could be wrong. They tried to improve this year. They brought in Luis Barraza, who was with NYCFC. He's their goalkeeper. Matt Freese stole the job, or earned the job from him. And he was having some decent seasons with New York City, or some okay seasons. So DC is a team that's tried to improve and is trying to improve, but they've also had a really rough stretch of games where they lost to Orlando. Losing to Columbus, I think, is one of those acceptable losses. Lost to San Jose 6-1. And then they lost to Cincinnati 1-0. So, and they actually beat New York Red Bulls, I was kind of shocked.
In Harrison, New Jersey, too. It was on the road.
Oh, okay. Was it on the road? Yeah. Okay. I can't even remember. So, some losses that are like, okay, that could be the Union, right? Like Philadelphia could probably match what Orlando did, and certainly what Cincinnati did. Columbus barely beating them by 1 is or maybe the score is not telling the whole tale. I'm just looking at a stretch here of their last 5. But yeah, this certainly feels like a game that they could and should probably take on, and I don't want to say, and I don't want to get too confident on their behalf, but it feels like a match that they should win by. And God, dude, the history against DC United favors the Union quite a bit when you think that, like, I think the last couple of games it's been incredibly lopsided with a 6-0, a 3-0, a 3-0. Like it's the head-to-head's not favorable to them.
Yeah, I'm going to discuss the head-to-head in a second. So going back to the Columbus match, because you mentioned it against DC United, Benteke has scored a goal in the 13th minute, and then Diego Rossi scored a goal in the 16th and the 65th. So they gave up an early goal, but then kind of held it together and settled down and beat them 2-1. So to your point, though, they have lost 4 out of the last 5 games. Losing 6-1 against any opponent is just demoralizing. So it's interesting to see how many goals they've given up in some of their games. Head to head, though, let's look at the last 5 games between the Philadelphia Union and DC United. On September 22nd of last year, the Union won 4-0. We drew 2-2 on May 4th of last year as well. We beat them 3-1 in 2023, and then the last 2 before that, drew 0-0, drew 0-0. So these last 3 games against DC United have each had a total of 4 goals. So of course, as you know me, with the sports
Oh
betting
my god, you
line of thing.
sicko!
So I mean, typically when you look at certain lines for soccer, it's like it usually does 2.5 for the over under. So I just opened up ESPN and it actually went to 3.5. So it's over 3.5 plus 135, under 3.5 minus 180. So if you're looking at from a betting perspective, DC United and who did they just play? The Red Bulls, they had 3 goals in that game. We just scored 3 goals against Atlanta. The last 3 matches, it's been 4-goal games. So the books are kind of raising that up to kind of tease people to probably take the over 3.5 at plus 135, which is a pretty decent number. But if you're trying to make a bet, I mean, the under 3.5 with maybe a money line on the Union is probably a better pick since the under is like minus 180. That's probably what I'll end up doing. But I don't trust the Philadelphia Union's offense just yet. That's the problem I'm having here.
Okay.
We saw the outburst 3-0, absolutely fantastic. But we had a conversation just a week before where people were saying, "Well, where's Ty Baribo? Where's his offense? We can't score. Are we really that bad without Kai Wagner?" I feel like people have a kind of a short term memory with that, where we were just trashing how bad their offense has been, and now suddenly people are more optimistic that they're going to score against DC United. So I don't know if I'm quite ready to assume that they're going to score 2+ goals against DC United. I could easily see this being a very gritty 0-0, 1-1 type of match as well, just considering the opponent and the history we do have with them. What do you think on the offensive pairing up top? Do you want to see Ua and Damiani again, or do you want to throw Baribo back in there now that he's scored a goal?
I'd like to see Baribo get back in with
Oh,
Damiani. I think
okay.
I, I don't know exactly the reasoning for the Baribo non-start. I'm not gonna call it a benching. This dude's was and ended up extending his lead at the Golden Boot race. So like to say it was a benching is kind of ridiculous. But I feel like maybe it was just a hey, you got to reset. You've been playing a lot. It's been
Yeah,
a busy stretch, and it's gonna get busier here in May. So let's rotate a little bit ahead of time. But I I want to, and I don't know who asked it in the post match press conference. And quite frankly, it's not. It's a I don't know. I think it was telling of maybe like soccer know-how. Someone was questioning it, and yes, I acknowledge that strikers are there to put the ball in the back of the net, but in the system that Bradley and the Union are putting together, strikers do so much more than
sure.
just scoring.
Yeah,
So when it comes to the question that came up about Bruno Damiani and the fear of him maybe not scoring as much as they would like, it's like, I don't know, man. The dude is using his body like a monster, holding the ball up, holding the ball and switching the field when he has to. If you go back and watch the shout out, pimp, Todd's goal breakdown, he did a really good. I didn't even watch it, and he and I like have the same vision about it, but like the way
mhm,
that Damiani held the ball, passed it back to Ua to then release Danley to score his goal. That's what Bruno does. He's such a good holder of the ball and is surgical in the way that he runs into the box. He's just often an inch or two away from tapping the ball in or just getting a goal. So I like to think that he'll get going sooner rather than later for Philadelphia, but ultimately it just takes reps and getting comfortable with people. And I think the most matches and the most time that he has spent, and I don't have the data in front of me, but I would think it's with Baribo this season. So why
yeah.
not just continue to build on that? And that's just anecdotal off the top of my head. And now I regret thinking about this. We didn't. No one in the press conference asked. I was finishing out an email for work. How and who is gonna step in for Jovan with the Red Sox?
Yes. Listen, Steve actually brings up a couple points here. So, I mean, to kind of touch on what you're talking about, Jose, I actually commented on Todd's show on the Free Kick Pod. I said Ua will probably go down as one of the more underappreciated Union
Yes.
players because he's not a prolific goal scorer, but he does so many little things well. And I think early on in Ua's tenure with us, maybe not early on, maybe like kind of halfway through, I think he got a lot of heat. Um, maybe rightfully so at times, sure, but I think overall people expected him to be this, Cristiano Ronaldo style scorer, and he just isn't that. And I think you're right. The assist of Danley was a perfect example of what he can do besides putting things in the back of net. And it's not like he wasn't shooting. He had like I think 4 shots on target in the first half, one hitting the crossbar. So he's putting pressure on the keeper. He's getting involved in the offense. We've seen him multiple times over the last couple of years provide a pretty useful assist into the box. So Ua has done well, and I don't disagree with you. I think Baribo and Damiani need more time together, but I do love the competition. And Carnell mentioned on the press conference today, I love the fact that there's 3 guys who can genuinely start at any given match, and at the same time come in and know their role off the bench and contribute in that way. So I think it's a great problem to have. And I'm certainly not complaining that we have 3 strikers who can all start and put one in the back of net because last year we were worrying about, oh my God, Chris Donovan's our 3rd striker, and Baribo can't see the field whatsoever. I want to bring up a couple comments from Steve Fuentes. He says the weather does not look good for Saturday. I think it's a low-scoring match. And actually, Steve, I hadn't even looked at the weather. As of right now, Saturday is showing a 75% chance of rain. Every other day of the week is perfectly fine, except for Saturday.
and I won't be there, unfortunately. My son's first ever T-ball game is at 4 p.m. So I am very happy to be missing the Union game for something like that. So I
Absolutely.
best of luck to anybody who's there with that weather.
Yeah, I will be there. Hopefully, I get credentialed for the press conference, or the press box. I will hopefully be out there. If not in the box, certainly in the stands. I will get a ticket. But Dominic joins us today. Ua has a ton of assists for a striker. Is he perfect? No. Is he frustrating? Yes. But he's been vital to the team's success for the past 3 years, and I think that's a valid point. I believe you mentioned it, Jose, on Todd's show. Out of the 3 people that we expected, the 3 people that we've had in the past couple of years, the one that you expected to stay the longest was not Ua, but yet here he is over Carranza, over Daniel Gazdag, and yet Ua has kind of survived that sale of those top 3. Um, but let's talk about Lukic. He gets that red card off the 2 yellows. I know you mentioned on Todd's show you were very displeased with how he got those yellow cards.
Unbelievably so, but I mean it's the rules of the game, right? Like you can't kick a ball away. I get that it was maybe a tactical thing.
Was it a bit Jose Martinez esque in terms of?
And you can't, and kudos to the Atlanta player. I always preach this to people that I play with, especially like adult soccer, or like I tell my brother who coaches youth soccer, he coaches like an under 14 team, and I'm like, dude, you gotta tell the kids to do this, because the younger players now, like when I was 14, I was sprinting back to get in position. Kids now like do this gamemanship bullshit of
Yeah.
like standing in front of the ball, letting people get back. I was like, shit, man, like, okay, the game's advancing in a way, or advancing in all the wrong ways. I
Sure.
always tell my brother, like, teach your players to just ping the ball off of the dude's neck when they're standing right in front of it. Just blast them, because A, it's going to hurt them, and B, they're going to earn themselves a yellow card. So, yeah, it was stupid and whatever. And you also wonder, like, could the referee had let it slide? But frankly, absolutely not, because it's the letter of the law. You can't do that. So super, super bummed that that's the way that Jovan gets a break. But I also wonder if he was ever due to get a break, considering how much of a machine he is.
I also don't think I mean, I don't want to say you can't give him a break, but he felt like one of those must start players.
Oh,
And,
absolutely.
he's someone who you don't take off unless you absolutely need to. But I think the conversation has to be said. And who comes in and fills place? Before we have seen Vasilev play back there in front of that back line, but that was when Daniel Gazdag was on this team.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's a couple options. Do you put Vasilev back there with Danley, and then maybe slot? I'm trying to think who would play in that 10 position up top. Then I mean, we've seen Nathan Harriel play up there before. I would say the easier solution, which I don't think is going to happen, but the easier solution that I would like to see happen is that Bueno makes a start next to Danley. But I don't feel like that's going to happen. What do you think on that?
Yeah, Jesus getting a start would be interesting, right? He's a player that earned himself or got himself or whatever a new contract in the off season before Jim left, if I recall the timing of it correctly. That you sort of wonder, like, okay, what's how is he going to contribute this year? And Jesus Bueno is still sort of like scratching my head. and I don't know if it was injury driven. I don't know all the context about it, but I remember earlier this season, he was actually called up
Yeah.
and played and started a match for Venezuela in a World Cup qualifier, but the guy cannot get time in Philadelphia, which is, like we don't see him in practice. Maybe it was just needed to happen or whatever. Butch, I think is his name, from the head coach of Venezuela. Like maybe he just saw something different or had just had to do it for red card, yellow cards, whatever. But
Sure.
Jesus is one that, like, I still remember that 2023 or was it 2024 Leagues Cup run where the dude just caught fire, dude. Like he was just doing everything right.
Well, I mean, even we saw last year, he put the ball in the back of the net a couple times too. I think he ended the year with 2 or 3 goals. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong
Okay.
there. But we said the same thing about Baribo. We said, well, he's going to his the Israeli national team. He's getting onto the bench at least, if not he'd seen some minutes. Why can he not start in Chester, Pennsylvania? And now we're saying the same exact conversation again with Bueno. And also, we saw Rafanel last game, aren't we? Didn't we? I'm pretty sure he played like 15 minutes. So again,
Yeah.
I feel like this is a perfect spot for Bueno to come in and see some minutes. Now, at the same time, Carnell could throw a Jim Curtin at us and start Bedoya. And now suddenly we're scratching our heads again, like, okay, like what? Or again, I'm not, listen, I think one of the things we talked about was if they do not plan on replacing Daniel Gazdag this season, the most obvious solution is the fact that they're now going to try to push Kevin Sullivan into a more prominent role off the bench. We have also seen Vasilev in front of the back line. Is there a world where we maybe on Saturday we see Vasilev with Danley and Kevin Sullivan makes a start? I have no idea. At this point, it's too early to tell what Carnell is going to do. But there has to eventually be a point where why are we not using a player who you gave a contract to in any sort of capacity? He's only had 2 appearances here. But again, Open Cup's also coming in what, a week and a half, 2 weeks now. We haven't talked about that as well. Do you think then he sees, an Open Cup start?
Yeah, it's the way I envision this is maybe, and gosh, I think it's always a good thing to get Nate on the field because of how much of an athlete he is.
Mm-hmm.
That maybe he reverts back to putting Nate as a midfielder, but then that also makes you question, especially, yeah, that's funny, Steve.
That's it. Go and see.
Especially if after today's press conference, and if Bradley's being truthful and honest and frank, whatever word you want to use,
Mm-hmm.
if Nate gets into midfield over Jesus Bueno, it makes you wonder a little bit, right? Because that's Nate's, like, I can't imagine he's any more comfortable with being a midfielder than he is being a center back when he plays technically right back. If I'm making sense, like I
Yeah.
can't imagine that's his most preferred second position. Maybe it is. I don't know. But yeah, it's. I hope it's Jesus, and it's a way to maybe keep, yeah, Vasilev up top a little bit more, or yeah, I don't see how Cavan starts, especially after I think he played restricted minutes last night.
Oh, right. They
I
did play last night.
I watched 50 minutes, 55, maybe a little bit longer. Then I just started coming in and out. I was doing some stuff with the kids, and then I was preparing my computers, and it worked. I got my Nintendo Switch 2 pre-order in,
There you
so
go.
I got to watch sporadically, but I think it was maybe telling of how much he played yesterday, and also telling that Andre is genuinely fully healthy, that Rick played the entire match last night. So yeah, we'll see how they deal the Jovan injury, and I'm intrigued to see what, if anything. I like to think that should be only a one match suspension rather than anything else. I don't see a world where that extends over to beyond DC. And Mike, you and I are talking about matches that they need to absolutely win. DC United, tough stretch in the league so far. Montreal seems like it's after DC, and yes, it is at Montreal, which has been a bit of a puzzle for
A
Philadelphia. That's
little bit.
that the double VAR. Remember that
Mhm.
VAR for VAR.
Yeah.
They need to sort that out before they go into U.S. Open Cup. But I, I spoke with Todd about this, Mike, and I know we're like bouncing around a whole lot here, but
Okay.
do you are you in the same camp as me in terms of, especially this early into the league, especially if they get these 6 points here in 2 matches? a little bit more cushion for Bradley in Philadelphia. Are you in the camp as I am of to put all the eggs on the U.S. Open Cup basket? Because you got to win something at some point.
We had a conversation about 2 years ago. I want to say it was right after the
Yeah,
MLS Cup loss, probably 2023. And Dave Miller, our third amigo in this little group we have, he mentioned, how do we have the audacity to assume we cannot go for every single trophy? We haven't won anything. We have a COVID supporter shield and we have an Eastern Conference trophy. You go out and you try to win as much as you possibly can. I think from a morale standpoint, from a franchise, probably more so the fans than the franchise itself, I want the Open Cup. I want the Open Cup. I was at the 2 Open Cup losses in Chester, and it sucked. And we were inches away. And Nagira hitting the post will haunt me forever, you know?
yeah.
Um, I would love to see them go for it because you're right. We don't have Leagues Cup this year. We're not in CONCACAF this year. Uh, Theoretically speaking, I mean, as this roster stands right now, you're probably not winning MLS Cup right now this year. I say go for it. We're already in the round of 32, right? So we have,
Yeah,
yeah. So we have to win 5. I'm trying to do the math off the top of my head. 4 or 5 matches, right? Give or take to win it. I say,
something like that. Yeah, it's basically you're at the point where it's less than a World Cup. It's literally knockout rounds here, and there's no replay. It's just straight through. If I recall, it's like win or go home type of situation all the way through 32, 16, 8, 4, 5.
I think in this particular season, you go for it. I believe if you're looking at the 2023 season, and we had that conversation before the year started, what do you prioritize? That is the one that gets the bottom of the list. But we haven't had a Wednesday game yet this year, if I can remember correctly. We don't have any other competitions going now. I say you put these players to the test and push for it. You're only worried about MLS right now. Why not do it? Even if you have to rotate half of your roster against Indy and you get the early lead and then just kind of bring in the back, whatever you got to do. Or even maybe against Montreal, build up an early league and then try to rotate lead and then rotate some of your roster to kind of keep some of that fresh legs for the next match. Why not?
Dude, I'm of the mind of shit, man. Like Montreal, start CJ Oldney, start Andrew Rick, start him. Like that's fine. Obviously, he's not the one I'm the most worried about personally for like hanging with players, but put in Andrew Cavan. Let him run. Like, let him get it. This if there's gonna be one match where he can go and do this, Montreal is a team in some serious, serious trouble. They traded away a very young prospect yesterday. They brought in someone else, I believe. That doesn't seem like a one-to-one trade. No, it wasn't like a trade, but like one shipped out, one shipped in. It didn't seem like it was like an equal type of thing. Yes, Dan, entirely too early for bourbon. But Montreal's a team that's just like spiraling out of control in a way. And like when people were complaining about Philadelphia's roster and me being maybe like more often than not up very, very half full, if not to the tippy top full in terms of like positivity with a lot of stuff. When people were complaining about the Union roster, I'm like, go check out what Montreal has. Because
Yeah.
brother, I don't think you want any of that. So yeah, like put CJ Olney, put some of these guys, especially these homegrowns that Neil Pierre. Shoot, let me watch Neil Pierre against these guys. Like I don't know what the Union 2 schedule looks like that week, but it'll be interesting to see who plays, who doesn't play, and what are the minutes restrictions leading into either match. But yeah, I know we're completely off track here and talking about U.S. Open Cup.
No, but I think it's a valid point, and I do believe that you also don't want to overlook Montreal. That's the problem. You don't want to have a trap game because that would be the worst thing to happen before you enter an Open Cup game. Because then there's a little bit more pressure than I don't know, maybe not. But even just from an MLS standpoint, if you win against DC United and then lose against Montreal, forget Open Cup for a second. Now you're kind of going into that Columbus game with a genuine like possibility that you could be losing 2 in a row. And I don't like that. I mean, I think overall you want to shift this culture to a winning culture. I do like the fact that they went with a new coach this year to try to do that because I think the players got stale with Curtin last season. So I want to not overlook any games or not take any game seriously because, as Steve mentioned, the way the second half of the season lines up, favoring the Union schedule wise, I say why not try to go for it? You should try to win everything this year.
I
Absolutely go for it.
I fall into the camp that, Mike, if they lose to Montreal and the context, which is the key here, and the national press will not pay attention to it, especially those that parachute in and parachute out just for a story every week.
Of course.
But if the context of the story of a Montreal loss, that's 6 or 7 fucking nothing, the Union lose somehow at the, what is it, Stadio Zapato? I think that's what it's called, or something like that. Don't even know why I'm trying. It's French. Saputo Stadium. Union lose 6-0. Like, okay, the context is that they gave it a go with CJ Olney. They gave it a go with Cavan, with David Vasquez, with Neil Pierre, with Sal Olivas up front. Like, they gave it a go and they lost. And, that's what people want to see in terms, like, I want to see how these guys hang with these players. Because, dude, even watching last night, that Union 2 game against NYCFC 2, which, by the way, Andres Perea was starting for NYCFC too. I think he was maybe rehabbing an injury. I don't know the full context of the start, but it was just sort of comical,
Okay.
Especially for someone who makes $650,000 a year playing MLS Next Pro. Hopefully, it's injury driven. But if the context is that those guys played and they lost 6-0, I'm okay with that because that's part of the growth for these dudes. Like, Neil Pierre is way too good for MLS Next Pro. David Vasquez, the way that he was moving the ball around and around players, is way too good for MLS Next Pro. CJ
Yeah.
Olney as well. It's like these guys, behind the scenes, I've told people that I hope and I hope that they consider loaning some of these guys to USL sides.
You mentioned that with Andrew Rick on Tacha.
Send Andrew Rick to USL, get everyday minutes or every weekend minutes against grown men, not MLS Next Pro sides. I want to see David Vasquez play against grown men. I want to see CJ Olney against grown men. I get that Cavan and those guys are probably practicing with the first team anyways, but it's not the same as the emotions and the stress and the anxiety that you get playing an actual 90-minute game. So they need that experience. They don't need to, sure, they can be practicing with players, but until they're actually playing in sanctioned games, it's a completely different story.
Well, I think our friend Brady mentioned on Twitter, and others probably have as well. I think Kevin Kincaid even hinted at it. The Union feel like they're kind of in the middle of a development team and a team that's trying to win now. And they're not necessarily picking a side. They're kind of contradicting themselves a bit with how they're approaching this season. That might be in part due to the start that they had this year. I don't think they expected to be, I mean, they're in fifth place in the Eastern Conference, but they're only 3 points back from first place, and they're tied for second for goal differential too, as well in the Eastern Conference. So, like, I feel like they're off to a better start than people may have anticipated. But I agree with you. I think you have to see, and I said this last year, you have to see what some of your bench players can do. And unfortunately, a lot of our bench players are younger players, like Pierre and even Raffanella, whoever might be.
I do I do
Yeah,
want to correct you on something, Mike, super quick, because
sure.
I don't want to have you get in trouble or speak for anybody,
Okay.
me included, but let alone Bradley Carnell. I would argue that based on the press conferences and all of the media that the Union are putting out, especially during preseason, to me it was quite apparent. And even talking to folks behind the scenes, especially leading into Jovan coming in, Glavinovic coming in, everybody I spoke with was actually pretty high behind the scenes about this squad internally. Like,
Right.
they felt very good about what they had cooking. Externally, that's a
That's
different story.
that's a better way to put it. You're absolutely right.
And me knowing the context of what they're feeling inside, I was like, okay, like, I trust this opinion because I trust this person. They have better eyes and a better soccer mind than I do. So, like, yeah, I trust it. So, like, I just wanted to sort of fix that for you a little
Well,
bit.
and I think most of that conversation was from last week's start with Nathan Harriel, center back, because it was the conversation was, well, why are you then not putting Pierre? The whole point of getting rid of Curtin and the press conference from last year was, well, we need to play the younger guys and we need to make sure the youth is playing. And there's a streamline from the Union 2 to Union 1, and it's get these young guys on the field. Why are we not seeing Rafael more, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? So then people thought, okay, Makanya is not going to start. Glavinovic is out. Neil Pierre has to then start at center back, and then Nathan Harrell is thrown in there. And that kind of contradicts what they've wanted to do. But at the same time, I argue that Westfield is seeing the field. So it's
Oh,
like, so you kind of have like, okay, well, yeah, you're not seeing Pierre where you wanted to, but you're also not going to bench Nathan Harrell. Like you're trying to win a game,
yeah.
and you have Westfield. So there is like that. I don't think you can go full one direction. I just understand where people are coming from. That there is a bit of a contradiction with how they're approaching, but I also don't. It's a very delicate and complicated matter to even talk about, let alone put into practice.
Yeah, I want to, if I may, just super quick. I know we're probably getting ready to wrap up here, as
Yeah,
you probably have work to do. I have some work to finish up here as I go into a busy stretch with my own work and personal life. But Dan Herman asks, "What's the hesitation from the club to do that very thing?" I assume Dan's speaking about loaning players externally.
I think so.
Um, I don't know all the ins and outs, and frankly, I haven't asked. But as I'm piecing things together and just in sort of like, okay, like conversations I'm having behind the scenes, as well as seeing what they're doing, I think I can piece together that I'm trying to piece together. Oh my God, someone is paying attention. I just got a text message from someone. Oh my God. All right. No,
We'll
it's
just-
putting a smile to my face because it's someone I did not expect to be paying attention. It's a very good person to be paying attention. I think the union like to keep it in house, right? They've built this system.
sure.
They've trusted this system of uh, they. I don't want to say Nate. I don't want to say Jack because they came in a little bit later into their development. But like if you
Yeah.
think about a Neil Pierre, or maybe I'm misspeaking, and Neil Pierre and the Aronson brothers joined the academy at around the same time. I could be wrong. I'm not that well versed in the academy as a Matt Ralph, who's a genius and
Yeah, great
the,
guy.
the historian of that.
Yeah.
Um, but I think the union like to keep it in house because they trust their process, they trust how they do it, and it has worked for them. That I think the hesitation of loaning players out to USL is interesting to me. I wish it wasn't a hesitation. I guess I shouldn't say it's a hesitation. I just wish they would explore it. But I could also see how it's maybe difficult to work into sending players to USL teams that are players that will actually come back and support the team, right? Because they have technically done it. If you think about Brandon Craig, right? He went to El
Yeah.
Paso, but we knew that as soon as, or at least I knew in conversations that as soon as he went to El Paso, like that was a wrap. Like
Mhm.
I don't believe that he'll ever come and hop back on that type of thing. Get involved or have a large part per se, but like you think of a Neil Pierre, like shit, you send him on loan to play USL, he goes and tears it up with Danny Cruz at Louisville. He becomes like a starting center back alongside Josh Jones, who local kid from Pennsylvania who played with the Nor'easters in USL League. Is it one or A? I can't remember. Mark, if you're in the comments, let me know. But stud at Louisville, goes to Louisville as a drafted play or drafted by RSL, goes there. Like they get that experience, like, oh my gosh, the value goes through the roof. I don't know if there's some sort of devaluation that comes from players who go on loan to USL and then bounce back to MLS. I don't know how that works, but I like to think that, scouts get the context more than, the average person.
Yeah.
But I would be all for some of these guys to actually get to play against men because they are tearing it up in MLS Next Pro. And MLS Next Pro, for as much as MLS Next Pro wants to be that league or the league in a way, like it is still ultimately an under 23 league.
Yeah. It's not there yet.
It's not quite there yet, and I know that they've made
And,
strides in signing players to make it more legitimate per se, but like
and
it's
yeah,
not there yet.
and it might be there in 5 to 10 years. And we have the conversation where, okay, these guys are coming through where I mean, I guess, a comparison. It's like AAA to the major leagues, right? It's more of that that even playing field where they're actually getting good experience and, as Dan kind of mentions, developing the right way against the right level of talent. Um, I guess we can end the show with this little question that Dominic kind of brings here, which is entertaining to me. How much good faith would Ernst and the front office win back if they win the Open Cup?
You want to go first, or should I go first?
I think that winning solves everything. And I think, to Eric's point, we've been denied the Open Cup for so long. It would taste good, like have that revenge. Like finally we got it. Is it going to be completely wiped away? No, because ultimately a lot of the MLS, higher ranked, higher caliber MLS clubs do not put all their eggs into the Open Cup basket. They're worried about CONCACAF and they're worried about winning the MLS, cup. So I think it would be a step in the right direction. I think we can all agree that Jim Curtin's, I won't say flaw, but I think one of the things that people criticize the most was the fact that he could never win that final game. So yeah, I think if you're looking for a cultural shift, I think if you're talking about having faith in the coach and a coach who can finish the job, yeah, I think some good faith will come back for this franchise.
Yeah, I would agree. I think this is the coveted one per se, right? Of like, this is the one that was. Let me back up. I almost said something really stupid. I was gonna say this is the one that's been like inches away from the Union winning, but obviously 2022 is was literally on the hands, and they just fell, leaving the I'm thinking like Indiana Jones because I'm playing the video game, but like they had the fucking trophy in their hands, and then they fell, leaving the temple, running away from the rolling rock. They just dropped it on the way out. Um, but this is the one that they've attempted so many times and have been so close at this point. Twice, right? Two finals and lost both of them, as well as some decent runs throughout. So, like, if they were to win this one, like, I don't know, man. I don't. I would be so happy for them. And this is me taking a step back, right? Like, I think you've noticed that with me, Mike. I'm taking a step back from being a fan, doing this press stuff more and more, and being more involved because I have to. I have to be logical and neutral in a lot of these things. But
Of
I
course.
would be lying to you and anybody watching if I said that I wouldn't have a massive smile if I saw those guys who we come to. I personally get to know them, and sometimes they reach out, and ultimately, like, seeing them smile with a trophy in their hands, I would be so thrilled for them. But this is one that if they were to win with the history behind it, and or the history of the club in this competition, like, how unreal would that be? And that's why I question, and I'm really intrigued to see if people will actually put their money where their mouth is and actually show up during the game.
I want to say something that might get me in trouble. Not with the Union, but
Three, there we go. Thank you, Dominic. Three Open Cup final losses. I must have been forgetting one. I know one was RSL, one was
Sporting
Seattle.
Kansas City,
Oh,
Seattle,
sorry,
and and
Kansas.
and Houston.
Yeah, Houston. Oh,
Um,
Houston was the away one, right? The other two were home.
yes,
Yeah.
the away one that we looked pretty bad at. Okay, you said something just now, and I just lost what you said. But going back to the good faith with front office and Open Cup. I mean, as you know, I've been outspoken again about the Sons of Ben, and I've been active in trying to get them, maybe get their reputation back. There was a lot of protests last year with Leagues Cup. A
Yeah.
lot of people saying we want Open Cup. If you want this team to go all out and push for it and win it, and you want there to be good faith restored with the front office, I think from a fan perspective, the Sons of Ben have to really show out for the Open Cup and get the good faith back on their members that they have lost recently because of all the things that have been going on. So, yes, I want the players to go for it and the team to go for it too because I want a trophy. The fans got to show up then and support this club and really show like why the Open Cup should be probably higher ranked and higher desired than Leagues Cup and more supported by Apple and all that stuff. So I hope that the fans show up and actually like live to what they were preaching last year because if it's an empty stadium, all that last year was kind of for nothing.
Yeah. I don't know, man. And you know where I stand on this, right? Like,
Yeah.
I was probably on the wrong end of the argument in a lot of people's eyes or minds, whatever. Like, yeah, thanks, Eric. Uh, I valued Leagues Cup because I love the international aspect of it, right?
Me
Like,
too.
I want these. I want these guys to challenge Mexican teams and close that gap and continue to play against these really, really good teams. And I'm a sucker for the fucking culture, dude. Like when the Mexican teams come, or like when we had Saprissa or these other, Costa Rican clubs come in, like I'm a sucker for it, right? Like I love it. It's such a mix of interesting characters, some far more friendlier than others, but I think that's any sport
Yeah.
anywhere in the world, or even the same sport anywhere in the world. So like that's that. But the U.S. Open Cup with again, like as Dominic mentioned and corrected me, and thank you so much, Dominic. 3 losses in the final, one that was just god awful, and the
Yeah.
other two that were just sort of coin flips in a way. Like it's just, or
Gut
felt like
wrenching.
coin flips. It's almost like if there was one year for them to win it and change the narrative, and I don't want to say forgive all the sins, not that there are sins, but I feel like a lot of people would change their tune very so quickly about Ernst Tanner if he was to help deliver a US Open Cup the year that Jim Curtin has departed, the year that he has helped flip that roster upside down. Like it would be just such a fascinating sight to see. And I say that just as like the journalist in me.
Yeah. I think there is a sense of it would be a relief for the fan base. I mean,
Huge sigh.
all,
Huge
all,
sigh of relief.
although we have been around for only 15 years, and I think the league's now, what, 30 years old, right? Almost
Yeah.
approaching 30 years. Um, Although even though we're still such a younger franchise, we have gone through some really gut-wrenching losses and tough moments. And even the COVID year with when, we played NYCFC, even though we didn't reach the MLS final, how many people that you ask say we would have won the cup that year? We would have won the cup the year with what's his name, Casper, and all those players that we loved before that 2022 run. And honestly, again, I always try to make comparisons. It reminds me of that 2017 Eagles Super Bowl, like that relief you felt like finally we got something. Finally, we have some more credibility. Like how many NFC Championships games did we lose with Andy Reid, right? All those tough heartbreaks. Of course, very different sports, different franchises. I think we all can agree the Eagles are much different than Union, but just the relief aspect, I think, would be a great step forward for this franchise, for this club, for the supporters group, for everybody. But Jose, you're right. I love that culture, and I thought we talked about that on this show multiple times. The Leagues Cup culture is like no other, especially for you and I, both Spanish-speaking, Hispanic heritage individuals. It's nice to be around that culture that we don't get to see on a weekly basis at Super Park. Unfortunately, not yet, at least.
No, not yet, unfortunately. And like I know I just maybe 20 minutes ago, and we should probably wrap up here, but
Yeah,
like
we gotta go.
um having just done the trip, I know it's not far. Bear with me. I have 2 kids that are young, and I like to be a good partner to my lovely wife. But the trip out to New York City FC, especially City Field, like in talking with Todd, and it was his first time taking Amtrak. It was his first time in New York City, and it was his first time like doing a connecting railroad from Penn Station somewhere else. How beautiful it was for a subway station to literally drop you off at the front door of the stadium,
Mm-hmm.
and how much that would bring to Philadelphia, to the Union, to connect the two. Like it was unbelievable. You walk out of there um, at Willets Point in New York City, and like you're literally 150, 200 yards away from the stadium, from City Field.
Yep.
Imagine that if a subway station stopped right in front of Subaru Park, maybe right before you get to the Sons of Ben lot, and some of that gravel or grass that's there, that's just like a parking spot. Like how much that would do for this team to bring more and more of the city over, that really isn't that far away, but feels far away because of the lack of
Sure.
transportation. Like I don't want to say I criticize Jonathan Tannenwald for his continued pushing for the public transit to stop by, but having experienced it, I maybe changed my tune a little bit myself. So I can only imagine how much that would help and how much that would bring a different population over.
Well, I mean, listen, winning cures all. Winning allows more fans to come in and like, well, listen, we have a desire. Our games are sold out. We need to find ways to get different fans in here and expand the stadium, bring more people in there. So
Yeah.
it has to start with winning, and that's where it goes to getting the Open Cup or even just advancing to MLS playoffs and showing that this team is maybe not doing the plan that everybody wants. And I think Kevin Kincaid hit on the nail on the head. You might not agree with the plan, but they have a plan they're sticking to whether you like it or not. They need that plan to now work now. And Ernst Tanner has his guy. So now we have to start seeing some real steps in the right direction. It was a good show, Jose. I had a great time talking with you early in the day. So nice to see you. I know you and I talked on the phone earlier how my work schedule has changed, so we actually have maybe a chance to do this a little bit more often. I don't want to say weekly, but a couple times every now and then we'll try to get on a midday show, maybe after a press conference. Steve, appreciate you joining us today. Everybody who joined us in the comments, really appreciate the support. Jose, anything do you have working on this week? Anything MLS and or Substack, etc.?
No, I'm waiting to hear back from interview requests that I've been working on. Should have hopefully a response on Corey Burke. Get a little sit down with him and catch up with him. He's out at Lexington.
Awesome.
In USL, I've requested Bruno Damiani as well. So I'm waiting to hear from the union whether there's interest or the time allotment for him to sit down with me for 20, 25 minutes. I don't need to do 45 like I did with Julian Carranza 1 year. Like that was unbelievable the amount of time he gave me. But then also I reached out, but they're like, we were going to reach out to you too. I don't know if that was just bullshit, but Rhode Island FC, where Carl Spratt and Dave McKay, former Union 2 and Union proper senior team assistants, they're now full-time assistants for USL. They're opening up their brand new stadium on year 2. They've invited me over to come and be there on the night and just be there, I guess, write about it, talk about it, experience it. And it's not often that people can say that they were there for the very first match of any one stadium. So I'll be making the pilgrimage up to Rhode Island next Friday for Saturday's match. So more to come. Excited. And then ultimately this weekend, just straight up MLS coverage. I think I have the 4:30 window onwards. So I'll be watching the Union while being at my kids' game in between innings or whatever. I don't know how fast T-ball games are. They allotted an hour, so I'm guessing probably yeah. They probably have some sort of like clock to like make sure it ends and not drag.
As somebody who has lived through T-ball, it's mainly the parents that slow things down rather than the children. So, as I've learned to bite your tongue sometimes. That's kind of my big mouth has almost gotten me in trouble, as you've learned over the years.
Yeah, so I'll have some MLS coverage this weekend, and that's what I got cooking.
Beautiful. Dominic says T-ball is slow. It certainly can be. It can be very tedious. All right. Well, again, Jose, appreciate you joining me today. Again, follow him at Jose R. Nunez 91. He's also pretty much a frequent guest on Todd Lewis's show, The Free Kick Pile. I'll put it there as well. You can see him there almost every single Sunday. I know you guys didn't record because of Easter recently, so you can also catch him there. They have a great show, and Todd's very analytical and tactical, and he's a great numbers guy. So again, Jose R. Nunez 91. I am Mike Rare, Ember 1323. I will try to be at the game on this Saturday. So if anybody sees me there, please say hello. We'll chat for a bit. It's also Kids Day, so bring the little ones, have a good time. But as of now, we got Howie Roseman's got a lot of work to do tonight. And hopefully that vibe kind of rubs off on the Union as well, and they can put out a good performance against East United. But again, have a great day, everybody. Go Union.
See ya.